Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 149 based on novel. So let's start. Then, Heaven Knife met gods, the gods that were protecting the fake astronomical phenomenon. Heaven Knife and the gods fought, and he was severed at the waist, which resulted in him falling down. His lower body was snatched by Grand Shaman, who had also snatched the severed hand of a god which was later stolen by Qin Mu. It was still with Butcher. I never met the owner of that eye and didn't manage to take revenge for my good friends. I was disabled, crippled. A crazed look appeared in Butcher's eyes, but his mind was still stable. I had no face to return to the families of those friends, to meet my elder sister, or to die. Those friends are still looking at me. With a cry that wasn't really a cry and a smile that wasn't really a smile, he said, I can't let them raise the crippled me and I can't let Ba Shan see the crippled me. This world had Heaven Knife who died in battle, not Heaven Knife who struggled for years at death's door. At that time, I crawled and crawled through the rain and snow. I crawled until I reached Great Ruins, where cold mud covered the ground. It was Blind who picked me and brought me to the village. That damned Blind keeps using this against me. Butcher's face became sorrowful soon, however. When I left Great Ruins with Blind last year, I couldn't resist going to visit elder sister. She has grown old, her eyes becoming blurry and her head not being as good as before. She couldn't recognize me anymore. Her grandchildren follow her, for she can no longer walk, just lay in the recliner. Her grandchildren said that the sentence she says the most is, I shouldn't have let second brother go back then. Butcher wept manly tears, but his voice still remained calm. When I spent the last moments of her life with her, she was still harping on about me, not knowing that I was right beside her. She said that she had harmed me. Qin Mu stayed silent. Butcher raised his spirits and said, even though I didn't spend much time in the sky, I saw a lot of stuff. The sun, moon, and stars are actually formations created in a small space. It seemed like. He looked at Def, who had been turned into a bull and said, it seemed like a painting. However, those sun, moon, and stars weren't things that were drawn. They truly existed and operated automatically, hidden in the painting. I had seen Def's paintings before, and they're extraordinary, but not to that extent. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. There are formations in the picture, which show us the magnificent sight of the sun, moon, and stars. Moo. A big black cow mooed angrily beside Qin Mu. Next to it were a couple female deer demons that were trying to pick it up. Butcher chased the deer demons away, and placed his pig-slaughtering knife on top of the bull's head. He swung it up and down, making the black bull shiver in fear. Butcher stabbed the knife into the bull's neck and carefully peeled off the cowskin, while the deer demons fled in a panic. Def tumbled out from the cowskin and grumbled, Butcher, you almost hurt me. The sky is like a painting, but it wasn't completely a painting. There were a sun, moon, and stars inside. They were all forged treasured. The painting instead covered the true sky and maintained the formations of the sun, moon, and stars for tens of thousands of years. You couldn't do that, your cultivation is too shallow. Butcher pushed pig-slaughtering knife back into its sheath and said, those gods in the sky should be the dogs guarding the astronomical phenomenon picture, and not the real gods. They are very strong and no weaker than those guys in high heavens. However, I didn't see the owner of that divine eye. He shouldn't be from this world. When I was investigating the astronomical phenomenon, he detected me and only then looked over. There was a picture that covered the whole world. The sun, moon, stars, constellations, and Milky Way were all formations that could operate by themselves. The thickness of the picture material was only 1,000 yards, while its height was 10,000 miles. Qin Mu had a headache. Was this something that humans could create? Back then, I didn't manage to see past the sky. Butcher's face became sorrowful again as he said, "My knife had only sliced apart the astronomical picture, but I didn't slice open what's behind it. Back then, my corporeal body was terrifyingly strong, so I didn't die, however, I went mad." As a matter of fact, Butcher would still flare up from time to time, scolding the heaven, full of cynicism. The people of disabled elderly village were all people who didn't have a complete body from various setbacks, while their hearts and corporeal bodies had suffered from psychological shock. They were more or less embittered. "I could draw what I saw in the sky," Butcher said. "However, my drawing isn't as good as that of Deaf. Mua, give me a few days. I will draw down all the formations for you to take a look." Qin Mu was astonished. Butcher was rough and boorish, courageous and strong to the point he was like the reincarnation of a bull demon. On top of that, the stubble on his face was also incomparably robust, able to give off sparks when he shaved it with pig-slaughtering knife. Such a boorish man was actually talented in both literature and painting. And he was even honored as Heaven Knife. Deaf, on the other hand, wasn't astonished. "In our village, the one most lacking in culture is blind. Butcher's literary works and paintings are all first-rate. It's just that he didn't put all his heart into them, or else he would have left his name in history as well." Qin Mu looked at Blind, only to see him staring at Deaf with shining eyes. The next couple of days, Butcher cooped himself up in his room and painted continuously. Qin Mu didn't go and disturb him. Cai Yinxiang in the meantime managed to contact the young patriarch and came to report to him. Patriarch had gone to West Earth, but is on his way back. Qin Mu was astonished. Patriarch went to West Earth. Could he be looking for his old lover? At that moment, he suddenly heard a voice. "Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor seeks an audience with human emperor." Qin Mu turned around and looked toward the source of the voice while laughing loudly. "Why is Heavenly King so polite? Just saying that you are here to meet the cult master will do. Calling me the human emperor is too formal." Cai Yinxiang was full of admiration. "Cult master's level of thick skin is something I can never reach." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor walked into the manor and looked around in astonishment. He praised, "When I finally retire after the success of the reform, I would also like to find a pleasant scenery like this to enjoy domestic bliss with my wife and children." Qin Mu welcomed him with a smile. "What has Heavenly King come here for?" "I'm not here as Heavenly Saint Heavenly King to meet Cult Master, but as Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor to meet Human Emperor. May Human Emperor assist us." Qin Mu's expression instantly became solemn. "Imperial Preceptor, please speak." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked around before saying, "Where's old Human Emperor? Can I invite him over for a talk too? Village Chief is basking in the sun and drinking tea." The two of them found Village Chief drinking tea with Apothecary. Numerous women surrounded them, holding the teacups to their lips, so the two didn't even need to stretch out their hands. The corners of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's eyes twitched. Empress Dowager was among those girls. He immediately covered his face and pretended not to see her. He had always been at loggerheads with Empress Dowager, who had gone against him time and time again. On top of that, Little Poison King Fu Yuanqing poisoning her was also his idea. However, he was still a subject of the empire, so when he saw Empress Dowager serving a man like that, he naturally had to avoid it. Empress Dowager saw him and sneered, but didn't avoid him. Apothecary saw the situation and smiled. "There are too many mortal affairs here, so let us go elsewhere. I know a place with an extremely beautiful scenery. Bring your musical instruments, so we can go there and play." The women danced and sang in delight as they left with him. Only then did Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor move his sleeves away from his eyes and greet village chief. After Qin Mu sat down, he also followed. Abnormal events have been happening in Eternal Peace Empire one after another. Numerous treasures and 100 stone statues had appeared, but this shouldn't have escaped from both of your ears, right? I'm sure I don't have to explain the danger of it to the two human emperors. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor went straight to the main point and said, "My visit here is to ask Human Emperor to take out Human Emperor's seal to command all the heroes of the world to wage war against high heavens, to prevent the people from suffering again." Village Chief looked at him peculiarly and asked, "Has Imperial Preceptor ever been to high heavens?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor shook his head. "If you knew the true power of high heavens, you wouldn't think this way. Back in the day, I took all the heroes under my command and planned a life-and-death struggle with high heavens at West Earth, but it resulted in only me losing my arms and legs. High heavens don't only have the 4 sovereigns of high heavens, but other fake gods as well. The 4 sovereigns are nothing to be feared, but you will meet a real god, a true god." His old face was filled with wrinkles that were very deep. There seemed to be an old farmer, who had his back toward the sun in them, the wrinkles themselves being the land he plowed. "A true god who is God realm in every aspect," village chief said calmly. "My sword skill lost to his sword skill, and he severed my legs and arms." Human Emperor. Che. That was what he said before throwing me away like garbage. He looked at Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. "At that time, you hadn't been born for long, so you wouldn't know about this. The strong practitioners who had followed me either died, escaped, or disbanded. I, this human emperor, had failed completely. I suffered an utter defeat. Your attainments in sword skill have already surpassed mine, even if your attainments in sword path are still slightly inferior to mine. However, if you go to high heavens, your end will be the same as mine." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor frowned. "In that case, what should we do?" "Don't go to high heavens, but intercept them," village chief said. "Whoever comes down has to be killed. One comes down, we kill one. All come down, we kill all. Don't worry about that true god. He needs a lot of flesh and blood sacrifices to come down. Back then, he managed to come only because a god of high heavens was used as a sacrifice." In that case, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked at Qin Mu and asked solemnly, "May I ask for Human Emperor's seal?" Qin Mu took out the black lump, which was a seal. It was not eye-catching at all, but it was made from all the best treasures in all the clans and sects. They were forged into one and represented the authority of the human emperor. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows and took out the seal. This action would mean that he, the human emperor, would be walking from the backstage to the front, bringing a lot of danger to himself. Like village chief back then, he had become the human emperor, and had no choice but to deal with the life and death situation of the human race. There were many hidden arrows coming for it. According to the teachings of the people in the village, things like human emperor's seal had to be thrown as far away as possible, but the people in the village had also taught him to be responsible. All the 9 elders in the village taught him different things, which sometimes conflicted among themselves, so he had to choose and follow his heart. Qin Mu took in a deep breath and asked, "Village chief, how do I use this seal?" "Pour your vital qi into it, then let us help you." Qin Mu pushed his vital qi inside, and it poured into human emperor's seal. The black lump seemed to have a kind of consciousness, which activated and flowed out back to the owner. Qin Mu instantly felt an explosion in his head as though unyielding strong practitioners, and their unyielding spirits, had been hidden inside, and were now rushing out at him. Dazzled, he thought he saw a bunch of people wearing ragged clothes walking toward him. Behind them were countless commoners of different races, who belonged to every clan and sect of Eternal Peace Empire. They were the ancestors of the people of this land. Their faces had an emaciated look and held traces of hardship and the fire of war along with knowledge of many casualties. Their gazes were filled with sorrow and fear. They carried a history, which would make people despair as disaster went through the land. The gods and devils had spread havoc, and it had been human emperor, who had brought them out of despair, bringing them to this new land. Each of them had taken out their treasures, and imprinted their consciousness inside them. The treasures were then smelted and forged into a huge seal before respectfully offered to that person. The one who wields this seal will be the human emperor. Their consciousness transformed into voices, which exploded in Qin Mu's mind. With human emperor's seal out, none will disobey. Qin Mu's heart trembled. At that moment, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Village Chief released their vital qi to help activate the human emperor's seal. With a hum, it floated high up into the sky and gave off a radiant glow. The unyielding consciousness transformed into physical substance, and the apparitions of the patriarchs and emperors who founded sects and countries shone, imprinting their majestic figures on the heaven and earth. Terrifying consciousness rushed out in all directions, bringing to their successors of the same bloodline the summons, calling them to come forward. That was their promise, the undying pledge they made to the human emperor for his deeds. With human emperor's seal out, none will disobey. The promise the ancestors had made 20,000 years ago had to obey even after that much time had passed. After a moment, Village Chief and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor pulled back their magic power. Qin Mu dispersed his vital qi with his mind was surging. That was human emperor's seal, the treasure that all clans and sects had offered to human emperor together. It clearly had no power in itself, but it had an immense ability to rally supporters. Let us wait here for a few days. What will come, Village Chief said indifferently. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor agreed. May I ask how many experts will come? Strong practitioners of ordinary divine bridge realm won't be too useful. They will only be able to give up their lives even if they come. Village Chief smiled. Those that dare and can come will naturally be experts. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor still wasn't at ease. The experts of this world were usually in the sacred grounds, and those that could be on par with them were only Old Rulai, Old Dao Master, and the experts of Little Jade Capital. However, it stood aloof from worldly affairs while Old Rulai and Old Dao Master had retired. Those who could come were not that many in number. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. When I saw the apparitions just now, not all of them were humans. Some of them clearly belonged to others' races. I also saw numerous strange races, Imperial Preceptor said as well. Back then, the clans that human emperor rescued didn't consist of only humans. Some of them gave up this land of eternal peace to find other homes, in other territories. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor expression filled with astonishment. They went overseas. In East Sea, a huge island was moving slowly in the ocean. Within it lived a strange race. The men had horns on their heads and fished for a living while the women had no horns. When the men jumped into the sea, their bodies would shake and transform into those of huge whales. Their head would still, however, retain the sharp drill-like horns, which they used to travel through in the water as though they were flying. The monsters in the sea were simply not their opponents. Every time there was a catch, the whales would jump back onto the islands, transforming back into men when they landed on the ground. They would then carry their catch to the village. Suddenly, all the people on the island could sense an ineffable call from their bloodline. They all looked toward a faraway land. The summon of human emperor's seal. In the shrine that was at the center of the islands, the heart of the elders in white throbbed as they shouted out, "Quickly, wake old ancestor up." Ang! Melodious cries of a whale came from the bottom of the sea, and the island trembled, for at the back of a whale. When it was awoken, it spewed out a water pillar that was hundreds of yards tall. Far away, there were a few more islands floating around, also belonging to the huge whales. The people and palaces on one sea island flew up and left, coming to the other islands. That huge whale then gradually sunk to the bottom of the sea, and after a moment, the topless, long-haired, and sturdy man walked out from the sea and stepped onto the island. In the hall of Sea King, numerous elders in white were waiting. When they saw the sturdy man, they all bowed. King Qin, the ancestor of Qin race, made a promise 20,000 years ago, and it still flows in our blood today. It is still within us. King Qin surveyed the surroundings and said, "Human Emperor's seal is summoning me, so I need to go personally. Call the sacred artifact." Numerous elders in white split into 2 rows, before a sacrificial altar in their hall of Sea King. Within it, was a long, spiral-shaped, golden horn which looked like a golden lance. King Qin paid his respect and pulled out the long horn. Instantly, huge waves splashed into the sky around the island, and the elders in white sent him off respectfully. King Qin held the golden lance as he sprinted over the sea, transforming back into a huge long-horned whale that surfed toward eternal peace. Just as King Qin leaped from the waves, a huge bird flew past him, its spread-out wings covering an area of a few hectares. When that huge bird saw him, its body did a sudden spin and flew over like an arrow. Countless feathers fluttered in the wind as it transformed into a woman who landed in front of King Qin. Her legs were talons, while on her head there was a victory headdress made from plumes. King Qin smiled and said, "King Yi, you have also came. Human Emperor has summoned us again, and we need to come and fulfill the promise our ancestors made. How can I not come?" Suddenly, the sea churned and a pitch-black tortoiseshell ship broke out from the bottom, leaping off the sea surface, before smashing back down again. It swayed for a moment before steadying itself. "Raise the flags," a voice called out on the ship. Whoosh! A huge drenched flag rose, revealing a tortoise and a serpent painted on it. In little jade capital, old Rulai frowned slightly and sighed. "I thought we could have some peace, yet here we are in need to leave the mountains so soon." Old Tao Master smiled and said, "If we don't leave the mountain, our successors will have to, and won't they be just seeking death? Let's go." Old Rulai nodded and sighed, rising to follow him out of Little Jade Capital. The sea was foggy in the early morning in Eternal Peace River Prefecture. What happened next, the guards stationed at that time wouldn't be able to forget even after many years. Grayish fog spread across the surface of the sea while a huge narwhal leaped out. Its body flew above them as though it was a cloud, covering the docks of River Prefecture. The whale then became smaller and smaller as it fell into the city. Before the soldiers could even come back to their senses, they saw another huge shadow sailing in from the fog on the sea. It was a tortoiseshell ship, with all kinds of shells crawling over its body. A black tortoise flag fluttered in the sea breeze. The huge ship sailed straight toward the dock, and just as it looked like it was going to crash into the dock, it suddenly lifted dozens of yards off the ground with 4 legs. The ship then walked in the air above the ships and rumbled into the city. Within it, the soldiers looked at the ship that was walking in front of them in a daze. They saw that it carried a flying serpent, which had coiled around it and flapped its wings on the mast. If that wasn't enough, the soldiers on the ship also looked strange. They had a tortoise's shell on their backs, as well as flying serpents coiling around them, forming a strange kind of symbiosis. Pond Prefecture also encountered a strange incident. That area was known for its 1,000 deep ponds whose bottoms could not be seen. On that day, the 1,000 ponds suddenly dried up, and the water and fish within them vanished all at once. Numerous people looked into the deepest one, and saw that at its bottom there was actually a bronze door. Pond Prefecture magistrate ordered people to head down to check on the pond, and they reported, "The bronze doors at the bottom of the pond are locked with seals, they can't be opened." While the magistrate was baffled, the bronze door suddenly opened and a man covered in scales walked out. He turned around to lock the door, then shouted out, I know, annoying woman. Human Emperor has summoned me, so I'm only helping to fulfill our ancestors' promise. I won't be fierce and pick fights. You know that my temper is the best among us Earth travelers. See what see? See me shatter your knee with one punch. I wasn't talking about you. I'm saying those country bumpkin giants above. I know to lock the door. You're being naggier than my mother. Pond Prefecture Magistrate and the rest stood beside the pond, while looking at a 5-foot-tall dwarf with a face full of beard carefully locking the bronze door before coming ashore. Pond Prefecture Magistrate went forward and asked curiously, this senior brother. The dwarf covered in scales looked at him in alert. Country bumpkin giant, don't lay your eyes on us Earth travelers. We've made an agreement before that the surface belonged to you country bumpkins and the underground is ours. The magistrate of Pond Prefecture was flabbergasted when he heard the dwarf shouting into the pond right after. Woman, release the water, prevent these giants from stealing our underground world. Water started to pour into the ponds, and soon, all the deep ponds were filled. The bluish jade ripples in the ponds were like scales, and there were many fishes in the water once more. Just as Pond Prefecture Magistrate was about to ask about it, the dwarf suddenly tunneled into the ground and disappeared. Pond Prefecture Magistrate and the rest were all stupefied. There are people living underground. How are they surviving there? Meanwhile, in Willow Prefecture, in the south, which worshipped a lot of willow immortals, witnessed a willow tree transforming into a green dragon and flying away. Numerous weird incidents happened all around the world, causing quite a discussion among the commoners. Mua, these are the formations I saw that day in the sky. I didn't get to examine them in detail, so I can only remember this much. In the manner, Butcher passed all the sun, moon, and stars he had drawn during the 2 days to Qin Mu. The youth's scalp crawled when he saw what filled the hall. He picked up one picture Butcher had drawn which represented a star, and saw that its structure was extremely complicated and looked rather mired in minor details. The star was Chief Star, and the picture of the formation faintly showed the black face and tusks of a ghost god, which held a brush in one hand and a golden seal in the other. Under his feet was a fish dragon sacrificial altar. Qin Mu then picked up another star picture, and it was Greedy Wolf Star. The formation showed the picture of a dragon turtle, and with a sacrificial altar below its feet. He frowned and scanned the other pictures as well. Most of them had sacrificial altars formed by formations, while the inside of the stars had the shape of gods and devils. What exactly are these god and devil formations and sacrificial altars used for? Is it to operate the astronomical phenomenon or something else? Uneasiness filled his heart. If it was just to maintain the operation of the fake astronomical phenomenon in the sky, there was no need for them to be so complicated. The formations just needed to glow and that was all. Since it could be so simple, why were they so complicated? The sacrificial altar and the white bone sacrificial altar that I used to summon Duqian, Devil King, are slightly similar to these. It's just that the formation structure is different. Qin Mu felt his blood run cold. There were countless stars floating in the sky, and there were countless sacrificial altars hidden in them, ready to summon gods and devils. If there was a great blood sacrifice one day and those gods and devils descended, how terrifying would it be when tens of thousands of gods and devils came to the mortal realm? Not to mention eternal peace, even founding emperor era back in the day would have been destroyed, right? Eternal peace empire is absolutely not worth the effort to guard and supervise. So what exactly is this fake astronomical phenomenon guarding against? Qin Mu had numerous questions that he couldn't answer. The formations in the star pictures Butcher had drawn were all incomplete. He didn't have time to study the fake astronomical phenomenon before he suffered an attack by the gods guarding them. However, he had still managed to draw a rough layout. Qin Mu suppressed the astonishment in his heart and continued to examine the structure of the formations. His eyebrows scrunched up tighter and tighter, and he suddenly asked, "Grandpa Butcher, how are your attainments in formation?" "So, I'm inferior to Blind," Butcher said honestly. "I shall go and invite Grandpa Blind to take a look." Qin Mu went to find Blind and asked him to look through the pictures. "These formations are very weird, and I have never seen them before." "Grandpa Blind, have you seen something similar before?" Blind looked through the pictures one by one with his face becoming more and more solemn. He shook his head. "I've never seen formation structure like this before. Weird, this is truly weird. The formations in these star pictures are used to construct the bodies of gods and devils, but they can also give off rays like the sun, moon, and stars. This kind of formation structure isn't simple. It's a pity that none of these formations are complete. The time was too short. I could only remember this much." Blind examined them in detail again and calculated. These formations construct the bodies of gods and devils, but they also break down the bodies of gods and devils. "Butcher, do you understand what this means?" Butcher pondered over it before saying, "What you mean is that if we have divine arts practitioners line up according to the structure of the formation, we can possess the power of gods and devils." Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. Making the Qi cultivators line up according to the formation structure, and activating the formation, would be equivalent to gaining the power of a god or devil. If such a formation was activated, how astonishing would its power be? It's a pity the formations aren't complete. Blind shook his head and said, "You have drawn so much, but none of them are complete. Other than that, there's another possibility." Astonishing rays burst forth from his eyes, and he walked out from the hall. He raised his head to look at the sky and muttered, "These formation structures may very well be the vital Qi circulation of those gods and devils. The formation inside every star might be their complete technique. A huge treasure vault is up there in the sky, but it's a pity that I can't go there to take a look." Qin Mu's heart pounded heavily. A star represented a technique of gods and devils. How many stars and constellations were there in the sky? Didn't this mean that there were tens of thousands of techniques of gods and devils hidden in the sky picture? The ultimate arts of the three big sacred grounds, Tao Sect, Great Thunderclap Monastery, and Heavenly Saint Cult, were all revered as techniques that could turn one into a god, Buddha, or a devil. For them to stand until now and not fall, their effects were extraordinary. Yet in the sky, there were tens of thousands of techniques that were no inferior to the three ultimate arts. Just thinking about it made him excited. Yet after the excitement, what Qin Mu felt was fear and terror. Great fear, and great terror. Hope this sky will never be dyed red by blood. Or else. His bones started shivering. When the sky of eternal peace was dyed red by blood, the sun, moon, and stars in the sky would transform into terrifying gods and devils to descend on the world. This would be the vision of doomsday, literally. Suddenly, Qin Mu sensed something and looked toward the east. He saw a huge tortoiseshell ship walking among the mountains. It flapped its serpent wings, while its huge flag fluttered in the wind. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor also sensed some motion and looked toward the east. He saw a flood moving over like a huge wave upon which stood a topless, sturdy man holding a golden lance. There was also a woman in the sky with wings on her back. When they moved, wind and lightning surged, accompanied by the sound of thunder. They actually came, Village Chief floated up and revealed an excited expression. "I'm old, but they have not aged. They are still alive." The tortoiseshell ship came next to the manor and suddenly stopped. A person with a tortoise shell on his back flew down. He belonged to the race of black tortoises. A flying serpent danced around on the huge ship, whose bow trembled as a dragon head popped out. Flames and thick smoke spewed out from its nose and mouth while its eyes rotated around. It shouted loudly, "Black Tortoise Xian Xingwu is here to meet Human Emperor." The sturdy man controlling the huge wave lowered its speed and landed in front of the manor with a whoosh. The wave behind him then vanished. "King Kuan of Kuns is here to meet Human Emperor." The woman in the sky stilled her wings, and the wind and lightning all hid under her feathers. She then landed on the ground. "King Yi of Wings is here on invitation." Qin Mu immediately took out Human Emperor's seal, and held it in his hand, when he went forward to welcome them. "Fellow lords have come from afar, and I can't appreciate it enough. Please come into the manor to chat." King Kuan, King Shi, and Xian Xingwu were astonished. The black tortoiseshell ship suddenly trembled and became smaller and smaller, transforming into a majestic man, with a tortoise's shell on his back and a serpent coiling around him. Human Emperor is becoming younger and younger. "He was a middle-aged man in the past," he said in a soft voice. "Brother Xingwu, the Human Emperor you mentioned is most likely dead." "Humans are not like us, they can't live that long," King Kuan said. Xian Xingwu let out a sigh of relief and smiled. That's good, that's good. That fellow looked for trouble for no reason. He was always embittered and called us to do this and that, what an annoyance." Village chief had wanted to meet his old friends, but he couldn't help freezing when he heard what they said. He seethed with anger. Suddenly, a voice came from underground. "Earth Traveler Chief Tuxing." "Aya." The ground trembled, and a messy head popped out in front of the manor. There was a huge bump on it, and its owner roared in anger, "Which asshole refined the rock to be so hard?" This video will end here.